Thank you, Evelyn. And for the record, the interviewer is Jan Sutcliffe.
It's what?
I'm making something for the record. The interviewer, my name,
Oh.
is Jan Sutcliffe.
Okay.
It is February 4th, 2021.
Oh. That's
So we are going to talk with Evelyn Dyke Schroedl.
Schroedl.
Schroedl, thank you.
Yes.
About her long acquaintance with Goucher College. And Evelyn, just take it away. And here, I'll take this off.
Yeah.
We don't really need this.
That's
It's
good.
And why don't you start by talking about how you first knew about Goucher and came to work there?
Okay. I was married in 1939. My husband did not think his wife should work, so I stayed home for 10 years. At the end of that 10 years, he lost his job, and I said, well, I can work. I'm going to get a job. So I looked at the paper, and I found something at Goucher, and I applied, and here I am.
And what kind of, so you had not worked outside of the home before that?
Yes, not outside of my husband's home,
Okay.
but I worked at Hochul Cone. My first job was at Hochel's, and I worked 6 days a week for $10.
What is Hochul?
Everybody in Baltimore knows. There were downtown, in the middle of downtown, there were 4 department stores: Hochel's, Hustlers, Stewart's, and the May Company. They were the 4 big ones. Then off to the side, there was another one, O'Neill's, and that was a Catholic school, a Catholic place, right? I remember. So anybody who was Catholic went there to shop, and they're the ones who gave the cathedral on Charles Street.
Yeah.
O'Neill's,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they called that O'Neill's, Charles Street.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you applied for the job opening that you saw, what was your level of education? Did you have a high school degree at that point, or a secretarial degree?
A high school degree. I had graduated from high school in February 1935, and my family was in terrible straits financially, and there was no chance of my going to college. But there was something that was given at night at Forest Park High School, where I graduated. It was run by the WPA, I think. And I didn't know it then, but they were probably college professors who were out of work, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I took genetics, and I loved genetics.
Wow.
And I had never taken a biology course, but I loved genetics. And actually, I was having such a good time and enjoying it so much that the professor asked me if I could come and be her assistant. I said, no, I'm going to MICA at night, the Maryland Institute College of Art. Okay. At that time, it was not an accredited institution, so I didn't get any credit for all the courses I took there when I went to Goucher. No credit at all. Okay, so I took genetics, I took French, sociology, something in philosophy, and I enjoyed the course. They were all at night, and I was working at Hochel's during the day. And I wanted to go to MICA. It was very reasonable. And I had an older sister who was divorced, and she had a number of suitors. And one of these suitors paid my way to go to MICA at night once, yeah. He was wonderful to me. I shouldn't say this. He had 2 daughters near my age, and he wanted me to be with them because I did things that they didn't do. So I went with them several times, and they hated me because everything that he wanted them to do, I was doing.
In other words, he wanted you to be a good influence on
That's
them.
right, that's right. I wasn't a good influence, so.
What was it about Micah that interested you?
I had gone to Micah 2 days a week in the afternoon while I was at Forest Park High School. That you could get credit for that at Forest Park. Yeah.
You were interested in art.
I always, yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Great. So now continue with the story of how you came to apply for and get your first job at Goucher.
Oh, I saw the ad in the paper and I applied for it and I was immediately hired. And I stayed there for 32 years.
What was that first position?
In the assistant in the Registrar's office. And that's where I stayed all the time I was here.
Who was the registrar that you were
At
looking
that
for?
time it was Mildred Covey. And she was a great influence on me.
Mm-hmm.
She was very, very careful. Everything was done exactly right. We had rules. I mean, we couldn't wear pants. And somebody wore pants one day and she was sent home. So, but she had high standards.
Mm-hmm. And at that time, where was the office? How was Goucher, the college? I understand at that point they had already started building the
Yes.
new campus. Is that right?
At that point, the office was in Van Meter on the second floor.
So you started in the building on the new campus up here.
Yes. No, I didn't start there. I started downtown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And part of the campus had moved out here, but then the war came along and they couldn't finish the buildings. So there was only 2 buildings, Van Meter and Mary Fisher. And so the students who were living at Mary Fisher had to be bused into town to take courses. Yeah. So I don't think there were any courses out at Van Meter at the time. Yeah.
So when you first started at Goucher, can you remember what impressions that you had about Goucher College? Did you think it was a good college? Were you?
Oh, I knew about Goucher all my life.
Okay.
People I knew at Forest Park High School went to Goucher. In fact, one time when I was first working at this $10 a week job, I was sitting there marking things, and somebody from Goucher brought Goucher students in to observe, and so some of them were in my class. So here they were, Goucher students observing me working in this low job.
And when you say $10 a week job, that was your first paycheck when you first
That's
started
right,
at
that's
Goucher?
right.
Oh my goodness.
For 6 days a week.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Oh my.
I loved it.
What did you love about it?
I loved all the people, for one thing. And I care so much for the fact, and I went to every commencement. And as the faculty came in to the commencement, I stood on the sidelines in the old days, before I got to be a faculty member. And I loved those people so much that tears were coming in my head. They were wonderful people.
And when you say that, was that people, were they different from the people that you grew up with? Did they mentor you? What was it about that relationship that meant so much to you?
Well, almost immediately I started auditing courses. I found out that I could. And then I found out I could take them for credit. So that's what I did later on. But they were wise and thoughtful. They were everything I admired about people. Most of them.
And did you get to know the students while you were
Oh yes,
first starting?
yes. Oh yes.
And how did you feel about the students? Tell me about what they were like.
I love the students. I remember one time when Bobby Kennedy was killed, and he had been shot the night before, and the next morning I was doing registration, and the students were all around. They were making a lot of noise. They were just, the way they always do. They were talking. And I didn't know that he had died. And one of the students told me he had died. And when they saw how it affected me, there was absolute silence. It was in the auditorium of the foyer. And there were hundreds of students there. And suddenly, it was absolutely quiet because they saw that it affected me. So I didn't know that they cared for me until much later. I found out. When I came here, in the last few years, and some of the students came back and they told me what I had done, and I didn't remember it all. They told me how I had cared for them when somebody died in their family. I didn't know that. I didn't know that I had affected them at all.
So it sounds like it was a really positive career for you, both intellectually and emotionally. Yeah.
Yes. And my husband and I came to everything they had here. And he loved it too.
So, you worked with, the first lady that you worked for what was her name?
Mildred Covey.
Mildred. And then you worked for other registrars after that?
No.
No, it was always her.
No. I was the next one.
Oh, you became the registrar after Mildred.
When she retired.
Oh,
yeah.
awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you still the registrar when you retired?
Yeah.
So that was your professional position at Goucher.
At one time, they said they needed an older person up in the admissions office. So I became associate director of admissions, and I had an office up there. I loved that. I loved interviewing people. And I spent a lot of time writing up the interviews, and I enjoyed that. I loved to write. And when I found out that somebody came over here and destroyed all of the interviews, I was horrified because they were important. During the time I was registrar and associate registrar and assistant registrar, faculty who had retired came back to the office and wanted to see what they had written as comment cards in the records.
Right.
Because they were asked to write recommendation for the students. Right. And so we always had them. And we had everything that was written about the student that we knew about. And so I was horrified when all those things were taken out.
So one of the big things that has changed while you were at Goucher was having the 2 campuses, and then the new campus was completed. What things occur to you to tell me about what it was like when it was divided? What was the city campus like and the new campus?
Well, many of the courses were downtown, and I told you the students who were living out here had to be bused in. Yeah, so, but I was not there very long. I was sent from there probably 4 months after I started working to come out to Goucher to figure out where we were going to put all the registration stuff. And I stayed out on the campus for several weeks, I guess, writing down we were going to have the records here and the offices here and the everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I figured out where everything should go. And that was a big deal, I can tell you, because we had records from 1885.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the president at that time was Dr. Kraushauer?
Kraushauer.
Kraushauer.
Kraushauer, 2 words, little hair, I guess.
Kraushauer.
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 Kraushauer, yeah.
And what did you think of him as a person and as a president?
I loved him completely, and everybody did. I remember that when the staff, not the faculty, had a Christmas party, and he was there, and everybody went up and kissed him, and we all cried because we loved him so. He was very different. When I first started working there, I was invited to a faculty meeting. Now, I don't know why I was invited, because nobody else was. But anyway, I went, and I was the faculty person, you know. I was how much was it? I made $1,800 a year.
Wow.
Whatever that is, yeah, right. I was as low as they come, and I went to this faculty meeting, and I remember distinctly that Mr. Kraushauer stood up and said, I would prefer that anybody who does not have a medical degree is not called doctor. Call everybody else Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, whatever. And all my life, I have done that. I never call anybody doctor unless they have a medical degree. The people who have medical degrees are different, and they're called on. And, you know, many times on a plane or something, you say, is there a doctor in the house? And if you have a PhD, means nothing.
Not going to be much help.
That's right. And I've been in I've been in a concert where they said, is there a doctor in the house? And a medical doctor has to step forward. But anyway, so I do not call anybody doctor unless they have a doctor's degree, a medical degree.
Speaking of a medical degree, I didn't realize until I saw Marilyn's notes here that Dr. Kraushauer had a heart attack at some point.
He had a what?
A heart attack? He was very sick. Do you remember that? Does that stand out for you?
No.
Okay.
No, it does not.
Okay.
I was often at this house when he moved in, and his wife, do you know about her?
No.
Well, she said to me one time, Mrs. Schroedl, how do you stand this? And then I realized, while he was still in charge, that she had a problem, a big problem.
Oh.
She was, she was, I don't know what the thing was, but she could not take it.
So she didn't stay here, she was...
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
But eventually, she was hospitalized, I think. We didn't talk about things like that, so
right.
I don't know the truth. But I know that Mr. Krauser, after he retired, had a wonderful lady friend.
Nice.
You know about that?
No.
Well, she was, I can't think of her name, but if you go to the museum, the Baltimore Museum, you see that beautiful sculpture garden outside.
Yes.
They were hers.
Oh, wow.
And they were together often. And she went to Bermuda and somebody killed her.
What?
Yeah.
Violently?
I don't know. They said it was supposed to be an accident, but I heard that it was real. I don't know. But anyways, so he was without somebody.
Wow. That's very dramatic.
Yeah, it's dramatic. It was terrible. Okay.
So, one other note that Marilyn supplied, that there was a board of overseers
Yeah.
that Dr.
Krauser.
Krauser
Yes.
created.
Yeah.
And were you involved or aware?
No, they were from people outside.
Hmm.
Yeah. No.
So you wouldn't be able to say anything about how that worked or
No,
whether-
nothing.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
So I don't know when that was dissolved.
I don't either. It was part of trying to develop
It was-
support within the business community, maybe helping with fundraising.
Maybe so. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember that when there was a grant to be written, Mr. Krauser closed the door and wrote it himself. Yeah. And he was famous for that.
Uh-huh.
That he would do the work, not send it out for somebody else to do.
Good. And after Dr. Krauser,
Krauser.
you served under Dr. Marvin Perry.
Yes.
Tell me about him.
Oh, I loved him too. He was so much fun. And when his wife, when they were living here, I remember that his wife, who was very southern and welcoming, and everybody was invited to the president's house. She went to abroad one time, and when she came home, she brought a bunch of shells, and she put them on a shelf out here. And I was over there one day looking at them, and one of those shells was walking at them, and it still had the snail.
Oh my gosh, I thought you meant someone took it. It
No,
still had
it
the
was
legs
walking
of
up
the
the
snail. Oh my gosh.
window. She had them on the windowsill and was walking up the window.
Evelyn, you have just solved a mystery.
What?
We have this old chest over here that is filled with shells.
Oh, I
and
see.
no one knew where they came
I
from.
see.
And the what do you call it? The material archive, the archive department here at the college is working on a project, and they are mystified about the origin, but those shells must be from Mrs. Perry.
Well, not necessarily. It could be from President Goucher.
Okay.
Because he traveled a great deal and brought home things from all over. I
Right.
bought a lot of those things. When I retired, I had collected so many antiques that I had to sell them. So I started being an antique dealer.
Really?
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
And I did that until my husband died, and I realized I couldn't do it without him, so I stopped.
When did your husband pass away?
94.
94.
Yeah.
So any other stories about Dr. Perry's time?
Perry. Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't tell this, but one time he and I were to speak at a faculty meeting, and it was something about Phi Beta Kappa, and he said, "Well, I don't know what to say." So I said, "Well, I'll try to give you some notes." So my husband wrote up a speech, and I gave it to Barry. He said, well, I'll look it over, and if there's anything I can use in here, I will. And in a few minutes, he came back and said, I'm going to use the whole thing. My husband had written that. Somebody came to me and said, you know, Perry gave the best speech he ever gave. And I couldn't say a word. I should tell you that. Oh, God. Well, he's dead now.
Yeah.
So, he and his wife are both dead.
They're both gone, and
Yeah.
just by way of letting you know, when this interview is over, I'm going to have it transcribed,
Yeah.
and you will
Cut out the
you
stuff.
will read it.
Absolutely.
And if you want to cut anything out before we post it in the archives,
Okay.
you may
Oh, okay,
cut it
okay.
out. Although it doesn't
Okay.
seem like anything that's going to hurt anyone's reputation, to my mind.
Yeah.
So you mentioned being present at a faculty meeting. Is there any other time that you were included, and what did you know or think about how the faculty was managed and how the college was working as an academic place?
I remember that when I started working here, there were maybe 700 students. Yeah, is that right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And Mildred Covey and I were talking, and I said, why don't they advertise? Oh, she said, colleges don't advertise. Well, now colleges do, you know that. So, and they were doing it then. But she didn't think that. No. So, I never said anything to anybody again about that.
So back in those days, you were aware that some colleges were advertising, but Mildred's feeling was that they shouldn't
Absolutely
advertise.
not.
It should be simply
that was beyond the pale.
So it should simply be the reputation of the college.
Yes.
And how was the reputation of Goucher College?
Well, where I came from, it was the highest. You know, it was not the Seven Sisters, but it was like the Seven Sisters beyond the Mason-Dixon line.
Aha.
Yes. In fact, one time I saw that written down somewhere, that they were older than we were. But it's something I read somewhere. It said, but below the Dixon line, another sister became. Yeah. And of course, when I was here, it was all women.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember that I was fighting like everybody else, saying, better dead than co-ed. And I told that to somebody where I knew it. He said it should have been better co-ed than dead, and that's the truth. Right? They had to do it.
That's how things had to change.
That's right. And we had meetings about this.
Yes.
And the time that I changed my mind was when the former dean, oh God, what was her name?
Dorothy Stimpson?
No.
Oh, no, she was much older.
Much older, yeah. And, you know, she was...
Elizabeth Green?
Geen, yeah. She got up in front of the meeting and said we had to do it. And she explained it to me, and after that, I never fought it again.
So back in those times, where did most of the students come from? Did they come from the immediate...
All over the world.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, and when I was registrar, one of my most difficult things was giving credit to people who had studied in other countries I couldn't even pronounce. And there were several times when I had to call somebody at the Hopkins because they had so many more foreign students than we had. Now, I remember one time, you know, we used to have we used to have a booklet that we published every year with all the names of students, and in the end we had which countries we had students from. And one time, when I was registrar, I met somebody in the hall, and he said, "I see we have students from 20 foreign countries and one tree." I said, "What?" And I went and looked at it. Cyprus was spelled like the tree. And it was on my watch.
Oh, no.
But I had not been the one who proofread that. Oh my God, that was terrible. It was printed up for everybody to see. That's one terrible mistake from my time as registrar.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And what about the culture? You said that Goucher could have been, it was almost a sister school, but it was below the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah.
Was there a lot of Southern culture that was kind of evident among the students?
No, because we had students from all over the country. No more students from the South than from the North.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and from the West and other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And we had students from, princesses from Japan or Timbuktu. I don't know, everywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you have much relationship with faculty members? Wait, there's so many things. Can we just take a pause for 1 second?
Sure.
I'm gonna stop my camera for a second.
Okay.
Because it creates these long pieces
Yeah, well,
of file.
I am going on, so.
No.
She retired, she gathered together important dates in Goucher's history, and she published that. And I gave my copy to some former president, so I don't have it any longer, but Ken should find that.
Yeah, or Kristen, if we're in the library, can probably help me find that.
I hope so.
Yeah. Good.
And the librarian probably doesn't know about it either. Right? Oh my golly. I guess you're lucky that you have somebody who's been here a long time who knows some of these things.
Indeed.
Because there aren't many left.
Indeed. Yeah.
Good heavens.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, tell me now about how you became a student, starting to take credit courses for credit, and how long it took you to get your degree.
So, I think it was, I was 44 when I graduated. And I was 29 when I came here to work. So I don't know when I started.
But you said you were pretty interested in auditing it first and started taking for credit.
I was interested in everything they had here. We had lecturers from all over the world. We should have lists of those. Mm-hmm. Somebody should go through the old catalogs and make a list. Mm-hmm. Now, always in the old catalogs, we told who famous had been here to speak the year before, so somebody could go through the old catalogs. Is there a catalog now? I haven't seen one for years.
I don't know if it's printed anymore. No, I don't know if it's printed.
Now, the catalog was why I had to do the catalog. In fact, I told somebody one time that I had to edit the catalog and I didn't know how to spell psychology. Oh my. I knew how to find out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you slowly started taking courses for credit.
Very slow. Yeah, I took one course and I had to make up the time by coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you finally got your degree, did you march in the commencement?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes, indeed I did. Yeah.
That must have been a terrific feeling.
Yes, it was. Yeah. And my family came. And you know that I see on the television how parents are involved in their children's education. My mother and father went to my high school once when I graduated. They came to my college once when I graduated. that was but they had older children. I had a brother who was 10 years older and a sister who was 8 years older, so they had
Oh, so you were the surprise baby.
maybe, but we had another surprise too. I have a sister 4 years younger.
Yeah. Wow. So they had like two sets of children.
That's right.
They were
That's
separated.
right. So
Yeah.
the second two didn't have the interest that the first two had. Because I can remember my mother saying something about what my brother's teacher said to her about what a fine student he was, and she had never been to my school. Okay, I'm telling you all this stuff about me. Okay, so you'll know how I tick. Okay.
So, what area of study did you end up with a major?
I took an English course first. I had a wonderful teacher whose name was Anna Irene Miller. I think I audited a couple courses first, and then I took this course for credit. And she gave me an A. And she encouraged me to write. And many years after she retired and went off somewhere, I still kept in touch with her. And in a letter, I told her that I had been asked to give a paper at a registrar's meeting in some other city. And she said, I would like to read that paper. So I sent it to her. And she carefully criticized it, making notes on every paragraph, as though I were still her student. And that was years after she retired.
And how did your talk go? How did the speech go?
It went very well.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that was the reason I was asked to testify before the Joint Committee of Congress. You know about that?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't even remember what year it was. At that time, I was working in the admissions office. But the registrars, Middle States registrars and admissions office head in Washington asked me to come and testify. Well, I said to her, sure, I'll do it. It was about something was coming up before this joint committee, and I remember who was the author of it. It was about privacy, and so it would be privacy about college. And they asked president of, the registrar at University of Maryland and me. We had to testify. I remember when I went into the meeting, there were all kinds of people there. It was packed. There were people from the television, newspapers, everywhere around. I thought, boy, this is something. Then I sat down, and right next to me was the person who speaks before I spoke. And when he finished, they all left. It was not about us, it was about him. And it was Ralph Nader.
No
Ralph
kidding.
Nader. He spoke before I did. And I was sitting next to him. We were touching while he was talking. I could have patted him on the shoulder because he was there right next to me. And they all left.
Did you get a chance to testify?
Oh yes,
Oh, yes.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, you know, first you have to write down your testimony and send it over there. They read it first. So when I read mine, everybody, there were a whole bunch of people, you know, because it was a joint committee. They were smoking and reading the newspaper and everything else, but then they asked me questions. Then I had to really testify. And at one point I said, it was so smoky in there, I said, Mr. Chairman, I can't keep on talking with all this smoke. And he opened the windows. But that was before they stopped smoking.
Yeah,
So I don't know what year that was.
yeah. How interesting.
So I have the, you know, they send you what happened that day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I had that, you know. Everybody's testimony.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Okay, so there's something you didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, I forgot when we stopped for a sec. Do you want a sip of water? Do you need
No,
water?
no,
Okay.
thank you. I
Okay.
can talk like this for hours.
Oh, that's great. It's good for me. So after Dr. Perry was Dr. Rhoda Dorsey.
Yeah,
So tell me about working for Rhoda and
Alright.
how she was.
okay. I knew Rhoda when she was assistant professor. She was younger than I was. And we were good friends. I knew her sister. And, you know, we did things together. And I didn't have any hesitancy about telling her what was what. Right? Because I remember when she was as I was. Right? Okay, so we got along fine. But one time there was a faculty meeting and she was not invited, but I was. And I went. I even spoke at the meeting. And afterward, Rhoda had a very dear friend who was a faculty person. And this woman and I were walking across the campus, and she said, they had this faculty meeting, and they talk about getting rid of Rhoda, of getting her off. I said, no, they didn't. She said, they did. I said, no, they did not. She, how do you know? I said, I was there. Well, she went right to Rhoda and told her that I was there. And I sensed a very coldness about Rhoda afterward. And I went over to her, I said, listen, Rhoda, if you can't trust me, you can't trust anybody. I thought it was important for me to be there, and I went. And after that, everything was fine. So we were good friends after that, and I was at her house on Sunday, and somebody called me on Thursday and said she died. I could not believe it.
Was that when she was still serving, or much
No,
later?
no,
Much
no,
later.
I'm talking about many years later.
Many years later.
Yeah, was it
yeah.
last year?
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know.
But the students loved Rhoda.
yeah. And so, did she have tense relations with the faculty, or was that just one meeting that stood? So, did you go to faculty meetings by invitation, or just you were sort of given
No, I didn't
that
go.
status?
I didn't go to another faculty meeting until I became a member of the faculty.
Oh, and tell me about that. When did you become a member
I
of the
can't remember
faculty?
when it was. I was still not the registrar. I guess I was associate registrar. I became assistant in the registrar's office, and then assistant registrar, then associate registrar, and then registrar in all those years. I don't remember what year it was,
And-
but I know that I was not registrar. I was associate registrar, and I started going to meetings. And at one time, when Rhoda was president and I was registrar, she had to fire some faculty. And I understood that. That was a tenured faculty. I knew what they were teaching and how much they were teaching and what they would not teach. And I knew what the situation was. So I was not against her in this, let's put it that way. Well, one of the people who was let go was a member of the faculty in math, and maybe she was just an instructor, but after she was let go, she came back to the faculty meeting and wanted to speak to me. And Jack Chamberlain, who was the professor of religion, got up and gave a long talk in favor of this girl and against Rhoda. And when he sat down, I got up and I said, I think the president is remiss for not stopping that talk. That was a sermon that should not be held in this. And after the meeting was over, Rhoda came over to my office and she said, I wanted to tell you that I just could not stop it. I'm sorry.
So when you were on faculty, did you have teaching responsibilities?
No.
Or it was
No,
a position because of acknowledging,
The only course I ever taught was in the Goucher a Saturday program or Wednesday. I don't remember what it was. It was not part of the Goucher curriculum. It was something I was doing I taught a course in Art Deco because I loved Art Deco. And I had collected a lot of stuff, and I taught that course.
Yeah.
But that's something that people from the outside came and paid for.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Like SAGE, what they call SAGE, and the continuing education.
Yes,
sort of-
that sort of thing.
yeah.
It was not part of the faculty, not part of the curriculum. Yeah.
So let me ask you about other students who were what they call non-traditional students. People who
Yes.
are older than regular. Talk to me about did you know other of those students? Did you guys kind of hang out a little bit?
It took a long time for that to get started. Maybe when I was an older student, there was maybe one other person.
That's all.
Yeah. Now, I don't say that, don't quote me on that, because
Right.
I'm not sure of that. But I began keeping a list of all the other older students. And I'm sure somebody has a list of them now. But at first,
Was it easy for the college to accept the idea of allowing these older students to build up their credits slowly and still give them a
absolutely.
full degree?
Absolutely.
They
They were
wanted to do
paying.
it. they wanted to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At first, there were only students who had some part of a record somewhere else, and then they went off, got married, had children, and I was somehow advising these people. I don't remember how, and I would tell them, I said, "Look at all you've done." And they said, "Well, but these young people, they know so much that we know." I said, "How could they know? You've been reading the newspaper all these years. You've been voting. You've been doing that. You've been taking care of children. You've been writing notes to the teachers." I can remember all the things I said to them because they were so fearful. They get into the class with these young kids. The young women knew a lot that they didn't know, of course, but these women knew a lot that the kids did not know. And they were used to having to do things, being required to be on time, that sort of thing.
Was there much conversation or interaction between the two different types of students, the young
They
ones?
were in the class together. There were not separate classes.
But in terms of life, there probably wasn't much social interaction.
I don't know of any.
Yeah. This is so interesting. It's just really fun to
God,
talk
what
with
do you
you.
think so? Because I've been going on and on.
No, it's so interesting, Evelyn. Thank you. Again.
Well, there might be something in here that you can tell Ken, because he has a lot of catching up to do to find out what this school is all about.
Right.
I mean, I can tell from the way you have asked me questions that you didn't know that Goucher was one of the top schools in the country.
I had always heard of it.
Yeah.
I grew up north, and I had always heard of it.
Okay.
Yeah. I went back and I asked the admissions office or registrar's office here if they knew of anyone from my high school in New York that went here, and they couldn't find anybody. But
What school was it?
it was outside of Rochester, New York. My dad worked for Kodak, and it was a little town called Pittsford, New York.
Yeah. Well, I can't think of anybody now, but I'll bet there were.
I'm sure there were.
Absolutely.
None from my year. Here are some other people that were on this list. Martha Nichols.
Martha Nichols was dean of students. She did everything that was not academic. And she died recently.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And she had been a Goucher student.
Yeah, she's a Goucher alum. Mary Ross Flowers.
Mary Ross Flowers and Elizabeth Gein were friends, I think, before they came here. It may have been that they were in the service together. I don't know. I know that Dean Gein had been in the Navy.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe Mary Ross was too. I don't know that. But they were friends forever before they came here. And Mary Ross from the South, and Elizabeth Gein, I think, was from the West. But I took a course with Elizabeth Gein about Wordsworth, right? God, this is a long time ago. And I cared very much for her too. I loved her. She was no foolishness. She was very masculine in a way. I remember one time when we first moved into this building where the registrar's office was when I was here, and there were windows all around. And we had to work all night because of registration. And she was there, and she had to go over every student's course list and approve personally. And it was very hot, and we didn't have air conditioning, and she took off her, because she was walking around there in her underwear. And after she died, I went to the funeral, and I told that story, right? I said, that's the kind of person she was.
Onward, we've got to finish this
right?
job.
Yeah.
And I have the name Alice Falvey Greif.
Oh, now,
Alice Greif, do you know that?
Indeed I do. Alice Falvey. Alice Falvey and her boyfriend, who was not Greif, and my husband and I, we were all good friends. We went to parties together. We did this and that. And she was public relations.
Mm-hmm. It says here her nickname was Bubbles.
Bubbles, absolutely. She was a student, and I remember I had to go to a class one time and find her, and I said, I had to tell this faculty person, I interrupted the class, said, is there a Bubbles? And she said, that's the first time I met her. But she was still a student, but then she was working there, and she and I were working there together. And she and her boyfriend and I and my husband became good friends. And we went to each other's houses and so forth. But I thought of her recently when the inauguration was, when Kennedy was inaugurated. As a person in the public relations, she was invited to the ball, and she and her boyfriend went.
Really?
Yeah, and you know, it was snowing, there's snow everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know, her name came up recently to me.
she was from a very wealthy family. And she had been a twin, and the twin died, and then I have not seen her but a couple times since she moved to New York. And well, I went to the wedding or the reception when she married Greif. He was from a family in a Jewish family in Baltimore, who was in the photography business. Yeah, and we knew them all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But
her son got in touch with us, and he was a classmate of mine at Colgate University. We weren't friends.
yeah, she
back
had
then.
no children.
Yeah.
They were his children.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Cool.
Now I saw she was on the board here, and she was also on the board of MICA. She had never been to MICA, but she was on the board there. And I'd been a student at MICA, and I was very active over there. So I would see her at dinners and things like that. And we used to play tennis.
Oh, tennis. We haven't talked about your career as a tennis player.
Yeah. I was never a great player. You know, people think because I was, in all these interviews that I read, they tell you what you were a member of. And so I thought, maybe she'll ask me that. I better think what I'm a member of. I'm a member of the United States Tennis Association, the oldest member. I know that now.
Yeah.
And I'm a member of JASNA, the Jane Austen Society of North America.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a member of the Hopkins Club. I just go there. I haven't been able to go there since, and let's see if I remember anything else. USTA, remember her. It's many times I pay instead of giving
Donation?
a donation every year. I give a big one and I become a life member. So I'm a life member of a lot of things that are not important.
Yeah.
Right. Like I won't go into those.
So how did you come to play tennis? It was just, were you an active young person and just like
I was active.
Did you tell me about being involved with horses too?
I did tell you that.
Yeah.
I love to ride. That's it. And I told you about my father buying a horse. I told you that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a story. Right. That's one of my stories. But the other day I found a story I had written many years ago when I was in Anna Irene Miller's class, the first class I took in Goucher. I wrote this story about my life as a very young person. And I wept when I read it, really. But I don't know why that came up. But I was always interested in swimming for it. That's I told you about my brother, in this article I told about my brother-in-law teaching me swimming and diving. Yeah. And so my first job was to be a assistant counselor at a Y camp as a swimming teacher. Yeah. I got $15 for the whole summer. Yeah, but that was what. Oh, then much later, the first 10 years that I was married, I did not work because my husband was making $35 a week, but he didn't think I should be working. So he was working for Western Electric, and he was transferred to another place in Salisbury, Maryland. And they go to live down there during the week. So I went with him. I had nothing to do. We got a room somewhere, and I ate lunch with him, and I ate dinner with him, and we did everything else. But I had nothing to do, so I went to the Y, and I went to I don't know who I said. I talked to anybody, and I said, I'm down here. I have nothing to do. Is there something I can do? And this woman said, oh, well, she said, I've just been sitting here praying that I could find somebody who could run this camp. Camp. I said, well, I can do that. I know all about camping. So I was the head of the camp for that summer. A camp for children who could not go to camp. They were taken there every day. And I taught everything. These kids had never learned to swim. They had never learned anything. And I was the head of the camp.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, right. I worked hard at it, I can tell you.
I'll bet.
Oh, golly.
Now, in those days, would you and your husband, would you have had a car?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Everybody had a car.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. But we only had one car in those days.
Sure.
And when he was working in Salisbury, I had the car during the day. Yeah, I was going back and forth to the camp, doing everything I could do there.
Yeah.
The camp was called Camp It's gone out of my head, but it was on the Nantucket, and then the Nanticoke River.
One of those Indian names.
Yeah, that's right. It was in Nanticoke, Maryland.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I remember we had sea nettles. Sea nettle, and the kids were so afraid of the sea nettles, and I knew a lot about the Bible, and I taught Sunday school, and I told them a story about who was it? God told him to do something, and he said, "No, I can't do that." And he said, "You can do anything." I don't know. He said, "See the serpent? Pick up that serpent." And he picked it up and became a rod in his hand. And I said, "You pick up those sea nettles and throw them on the ground. You can pick them up. They're not going to hurt you." And I told him that story. I remember that. I'm just telling you all this.
You're a natural storyteller and a natural teacher.
No, not really. I can't remember things now. Okay?
That's okay.
Yeah, I have a lot to remember.
You do have a lot to remember, and you remember the gist of things.
Yes,
you forget some
right.
of the details.
Yeah, I remember who was there.
You really do. So, there were times when people now like to remember that when there were times of some activism. For example, we got a recognition for students being active as suffragists during the suffrage movement.
Yeah, that was before my time.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
I
were
knew
there,
about it.
Were there other activism things like cultural?
And they sat in the president's office. They sat in.
What was the sit-in? What was the
It was
issue?
probably 1968. I do remember that number. Yeah, that's probably it.
Was it about racial equity? Was it about civil rights, or about the Vietnam
What was
War?
1968 about?
Well, a lot of students were
That
about
was
the war
when-
and the draft.
No, that was when. What year was?
It was also the Voting Rights Act.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was never about voting.
No.
No, it was about
Fair housing for
the killing
Dr. Martin Luther
yeah.
King.
Was that 1968?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Everything was about.
Yeah.
There were things happening all over the city.
Yeah.
I remember that somebody took me home.
Yeah.
Said we have to get out of here.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember that all the classes were canceled, and I thought the classes should go on. I thought the teachers should be with the faculty, should be with the students, comforting them, because they were sent back to their dorms, and I thought that was wrong.
Yeah.
I don't remember who was president then.
That would have been Dr. Perry.
Okay, well, that was a big mistake, I think, to stop the classes. That was my feeling about it.
Yeah. And so
I needed comfort. I think they did too.
yeah, so there were very big riots here in Baltimore, I
Right,
think. Yeah.
Well, we had things were going on all the time. I remember we had somebody was growing marijuana on her shelf outside her window, and somebody told on her, and she got arrested.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had problems.
Yeah. And what about generally segregation and
Segregation? No,
and including the relationship between Jewish and Christian students? Was there ever any issue about that?
Never
No.
that I know of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But race relations. One time, Ken wrote something. He said, Goucher has always been racial. That was wrong. We did not have a black student until 1958. I've been meaning to tell him that. Yeah. 1958 was when she's big now. What's her name? They're having a party for her. They have a dinner every year.
Yeah, I forgot what the lady's
all right,
name
well,
is. I know
anyway.
who you mean, right.
She was the first one.
Right.
So she graduated somewhere else. But she was the first one. Yeah. And she had become an actress and a wealthy woman. And so now she's well thought of, right? And she is the first one. Yeah. I can't think of her name.
Yeah. And what about, in general, the women's movement? I mean, you were kind of a trailblazer in really forging your own, creating your own future and your own education.
We were a trailblazer in becoming a co-ed. That was the only, I mean, I was not here when there was a trailblazing. We were an accepted women's college when I was here. It was one of the big colleges, one of the important colleges. We had famous people who graduated from Goucher. Let me think. What did I start to say about something else? Things that they cared about. Well, the students took up every cause. There were always causes. And some of them I was involved in. I remember one time we had a poet who came and spoke, and a faculty member that I knew, and I had taken a course with him, was the faculty member in charge that night. And somebody came to the place and told him that his best friend had self-immolated about Vietnam. And he left, and somebody else took charge. But that was something that was, I was close to. And he burned himself to death. Why anybody would do that, I cannot know. But it was about our involvement in Vietnam. I hope I've got that right. I remember who it was. I mean, I remember the faculty member's name. I don't remember the guy who burned himself to death.
So that was right around the same period, the 69, 70.
Yes, it was, right.
Yeah.
I guess it was. I remember where we were and who was talking. It was the famous Maryland poet. And her name is, gets the information me now, but I've read everything she ever wrote, and I've been in to hear her speak several times. I can't think of her name.
That doesn't matter.
Well, it does, because it'll come to me at night and I'll call you.
Well, I'll send you this transcript
Oh,
when you're
yeah,
done.
right.
And then because sometimes you go home and go, oh, that's the name, and then you
yeah.
fill in the blank for me.
I did remember Ralph Nader.
Yes.
But I've told people that story about everybody leaving, before
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I couldn't think of his name, but now I remember it. I don't know why I remembered that time. All right.
So, okay, it's been 40 minutes. I'm going to stop the. I'd like to, if you can take sort of the overview. You have known Goucher for so many years.
Of course.
Talk about.
Everybody in Maryland knew Goucher.
But your personal perspective of knowing it, what do you think of how Goucher has weathered the changes over the years? Do you think Goucher has done a good job of changing with the times? And
They've had to. They've had to.
And-
I know we've been shocked at some of them. I don't, when what's his name was here, the musician. What's his name?
Jose.
Jose. All right. When Jose was here, he did things that we were shocked about. Absolutely. Well,
Shocked?
I guess
Like what?
It had to be done. I mean, we have courses here that we would never have had in the past. You know, courses that we would think would be a different kind of a school. Don't quote me.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's.
You be careful about what I say about people. That you don't put that in writing.
Well, both you and I suppose Kent can review the transcript, and you
Okay.
can take anything out that you want to.
Okay. Huh?
So, in general, you became first the registrar, and then a graduate, and now as a very active alum, you've donated money to the school to help them. So all of these different relationships.
But remember, everything I know, I learned here practically. I mean, you know, I was working with the faculty all those years. I knew them closely, really. I mean, they came to my house. I went to their house. I hope I haven't told you this story. I told somebody recently. There was a faculty member here who had a following. People loved her. I took a course with her, and I was not one. But anyway, I was invited there for dinner one night, my husband and I. We had dinner, and then we were all waiting to the living room for talk. And for some reason, I had left something on the table. I had to go back to the dining room, and there were cats all over the table, eating all the leftovers. I will never forget that, because I didn't say a word when I went back. They were all, I don't know how many cats he had, but they were
Funny.
Yeah, all the food had been left right there on the table. They were eating out of our dishes.
Yeah. Made you wonder, but how involved
Yeah.
the cats were when they prepared the dinner.
Yeah. But that woman, there were people still. I'm sure there are still people who almost worshipped her.
So was the decision to go co-ed a particularly difficult decision? Do you remember that it was a controversy that went on for a while?
We had meetings about it. We called meetings. I was not one of those who called, but I went, and I was opposed to it. And but then I became in favor of it. And at one time, we had a faculty meeting, And somebody got up and said, but we'll have to put in urinals. And I said, what? And I got up, I said, listen, I've been living with a man for 30 years and we've never had a urinal.
Good point.
So I was never afraid to speak.
Good point.
Okay, all right,
So when the first young men started attending Goucher,
yeah.
what was their experience
I
like?
have no idea.
Oh, you weren't here anymore.
I was not here.
You were
No,
not
I
here.
was
You
not
were
here.
involved as an
I
alum.
was not here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know one of the one man who graduated from prison. I have pictures of him with me, and I know him. I knew him.
He graduated from.
From Goucher.
Uh-huh.
He was a part of the prison. Do you know about the prison thing? The prison.
The prison education
Yeah.
system? Yes. Uh-huh.
Have you been there?
No,
No.
Kent has been.
He had.
Yeah.
All right. I started, I went to a meeting over at one of the other retirement homes. They had a meeting every month for people from Goucher. So I went to them because I knew these people. And one time they would have somebody come from Goucher to speak. And one time somebody came and told about the prison thing. Wow, I was thrilled. I thought it was wonderful. I started sending money. And so then he invited me to go down to the prison.
Wow.
Oh, I loved it. First I went to the men's thing, and I went to a class, and they had to almost hold me down. I wanted to take part in it, but I got to sit with these people and know them and hear them talking. I wanted to hug them so much. We could not hug them. We could shake hands. But they were wonderful. I thought, why on God's earth why are you here? You know. If you haven't been there, try to go.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to wait till after COVID
It's a
now.
life-changing experience.
Yeah.
You believe
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So then I had a meeting over at Oakcrest, and I invited people from Goucher to come and talk, and they invited this man who was he has just graduated from Goucher, but he had been in prison for 21 years, and just got out. And he's handsome, he spoke better than anybody on the faculty. So I have great pictures of him.
Cool.
I can't think of his name now, but if you had the picture.
When we first arrived a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
there was a film about, I think there was a film presentation and an awards presentation, so I got a chance to see a lot about it on the film. And it was not necessarily all about Goucher, it was also about the BARD initiative.
Oh, yes, that was on national television.
I bet, yes,
I
on
didn't see it.
PBS, yeah, it was very good.
I miss it every time, but that was the first time I knew that they had this everywhere.
Yeah.
Even Rikers. That's one thing I know from watching television.
Yeah.
Rikers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what do you hope for the future of Goucher?
For the future, that it can go on being one of the finest women's colleges in the country. And one of the finest colleges in the country, not women's college. Yeah. I guess who used to say a women's college? Yeah.
Do you think it made a difference back when you were younger and thinking about going to college? It made a difference for women to be segregated from men in the classroom?
No, I didn't, because I'd gone to a co-ed school, and they kept talking about reasons for having a single. And I thought, I don't know what you're talking about. And I went to this co-ed school, and I thought it was, I didn't think it at the time, but as I look back on it, I thought it was good to be with two sex, because all the rest of your life you're going to be with two sexes. You hope. Sure. I thought it was good, but when I got to Goucher, then I wanted to be, for a while, I was used to it being women's college, and I wanted to stay that way. But after all, the other women's college had to go co-ed too. Maybe they don't say it, but they are.
Yeah. And one of the things that's wonderful about Goucher's location here is we're very close.
Being close to Hopkins.
Well, being close to Hopkins, yes.
Yeah.
Also being close to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And having a lot
Oh,
of
yes,
people
yes.
in the community
That's right.
who are active. Can
That's
you
right.
think about that? And
Well, I remember when we had a lot of interns working for John F. Kennedy. Say a word. I should have said that.
working to get him elected, or once he
No,
was...
working in the office over there.
Really?
In the White House.
Wow. Goucher students?
Yes.
Wow.
Interns.
Cool.
You know about Kennedy, don't you?
Okay.
Kennedy.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. He didn't have as much of a spotlight as poor Bill Clinton did years later. Anything I have...
Believe me, it was much worse. Good Lord. You don't know that.
As your job at Registrar, you just became aware of a situation?
No. I mean, I'm aware of a lot of situations. we had lots of problems like that here. No.
And how were those kind of problems handled, or they were just quietly not talked about?
Well, I remember one president saying to me, "I will not put up with that on my watch." There was two faculty there. I mean, no, it was a faculty person and a student. We had faculty people marrying students, but this was before they were married. I should not talk about that.
Okay.
That's terrible.
Well,
I was aware of it.
Right. They used to say that when women went to college, it was a waste of money because they would only get married and they
Yeah.
didn't need that.
No,
So
no,
one of the objectives of going to college was to meet good men and find a good husband.
No, but I'll tell you that every male faculty member I ever took a course with, I fell in love with. And I know the students do that too. I mean, these people are erudite, they may not look beautiful, but they're attractive in so many ways. And I fell in love with every faculty man I ever took a course with. When I told you that when I was first out of high school, I took courses with professors, I remember the one professor was not good looking and all, and he was cross-eyed. And I felt that way about him. And at that time, I had acute appendicitis. I was in the hospital, and he came to the hospital to see me. I
Wow.
could not believe it. I don't know how he found out I was in the hospital.
Wow.
You know, I was just, like 17 years old or 18, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So you will owe a lot to Goucher.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And can you imagine what your life might have been like had you not had a chance to work here and go here?
Yeah, it would be just like somebody who didn't have that experience, but I prefer not to think about that. No, it would not have been good. I don't know. Sometimes I think, what if I had married the other man? What would my life be like now?
Was the other man before your husband or after your husband?
Before my husband. No, I was as straight-laced as any woman ever was. Even though I fell in love with all these men, I was true to my husband.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can't think of anything else right now.
But you don't know anything about Goucher. That's what worries me.
Oh, I do know quite a bit. I have read a lot of there was a book that I believe that you had some hand in producing about 100 years at Goucher. That it's like a magazine type book that you helped to produce.
I don't know that. I don't remember.
So it says at the 1985 Centennial Committee led by Martha Nichols, and you oversaw research and publication of a popular 100-year history.
I don't remember that. I don't remember it at all.
Did you take any physical education classes while you were here? Do you remember?
No, I did not.
Were there any?
I knew everybody in the physics department. Knew. I had lunch with them. I met them in Paris. I met them in, they were close to me.
Yeah. You met them in Paris. Now, did you do any work, study abroad back then?
No,
What do you mean
no.
you met them in
No,
Paris?
no. I remember meeting people other places.
In your travels.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. I remember I used to go to Rockport, Massachusetts on vacations every year, and I met Mr. Beatty up there, and we went to his house, and I knew these people otherwise too. I knew people who lived in different places. And I went and stayed with Irene Miller, my husband and I, when she lived on Cape Cod after she retired.
Yeah.
So I knew the faculty pretty well.
Yeah.
Very well.
Yeah. And you mentioned Johns Hopkins, the proximity to Johns Hopkins as being a big benefit to being here.
Yeah, because when I became registrar, I used to go to all the big meetings they had all over the country, and my good friends were the registrars from other colleges all over. In fact, when I was first asked to write that thing for the Joint Committee of Congress, the first thing I did, I was very busy. I was working in the admissions office, had interviews all day long and write them up afterwards, you know. And I wrote this thing when 4 o'clock in the morning at home. But anyway, the first thing I did was call my friends in Maryland, registrars, and say, what would this do to your college? And they all helped me. So I used what they said in my report.
Mm-hmm.
It was very helpful to know all these people very well.
Mm-hmm.
Good friends.
Mm-hmm. And you had quite a bit of interaction with the admissions department then, as registrar. Is that true?
Well, they were right there in my building, and I knew them very well.
And do you remember whether or not, at what point the college decided it did need to start advertising for students, and how that went?
No, I do not.
Mm-hmm.
I do not. It was not while I was here.
Mm-hmm.
If it was, I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You could probably find out.
Mm-hmm. Any of the guest lecturers or artists who came that sticks out in your mind that was particularly eventful?
We had Margaret Mead several times. Margaret Mead.
Wow.
Yeah, several times. She gave the commencement address twice. One of the best commencement speeches I have, now I heard 32 of them. Because I was at every commencement till I graduated. And then mine, so 33. 33. One of the best one I heard was Oprah. She was still in Maryland, and the students knew her because they watched television, and it was their choice. The faculty, because we always had presidents, faculty, big people. She gave one of the best talks I ever heard.
Interesting. And this was before she was the big celebrity she is now.
Right. She was big here in Baltimore, but she hadn't gone
to the national stage yet.
No.
Interesting. Do you remember what was so moving about it?
Well,
so
she talked about her life and what it was before and what it became afterward. I don't remember the whole story, but I remember, that is good for them to know.
Was it remarkable at all that she was a young black woman? Or were you starting to see more black faces?
I hadn't even thought of that. I had not thought of that. I didn't even think about her being black. Let's see. I guess she was the first black woman. First black person we had. I don't know. I don't remember. If I look at the people I met, but I don't remember any other black person. How about that? We should look that up. Yes. We had the presidents of colleges. We had people who were big in everything. But this, as I understood, this was the students' choice. And she was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. We haven't We haven't talked about a lot of things at Goucher that were important, but I can't remember what they were.